You think John McConnell, before he was a federal judge, you think he donated money to Senator Whitehouse's campaigns? Yeah, he did. You think he donated, how much you think he donated to Senator Whitehouse? $10,000? That's a lot of money, right? How about $50,000? How about $100,000? How about 200,000? 300,000? Keep in mind, John McConnell wants to be nominated to the federal bench, and Senator Whitehouse controls that nomination. You think McConnell gave Senator Whitehouse $300,000? How about 400,000? How about 500,000? How about 600,000? How about $700,000? You got it. John McConnell paid Senator Whitehouse $700,000 and then got nominated for a federal judgeship. Bought his seat on the federal bench? Does it look like that to you? Kind of looks like that to me. Then famously, earlier this year, Trump started Doge, started cutting a lot of spending for NGOs and various money laundering enterprises of the Democrat Party, cutting billions. You know where Judge McConnell's wife and adult daughter worked? Well, his wife worked for an NGO, Crossroads of Rhode Island, a major provider of Rhode Island's food stamp program, their SNAP Employment and Training Network. That's where John McConnell's wife worked. She was on the board. This is an organization that got tens of millions of taxpayer dollars. I think it's a total of 180 million in recent years. And she was on the board, getting paid, managing, controlling where that money went. This judge's wife, the wife of Judge John McConnell. You know where his adult daughter works? Well, I should say worked. And she was employed there until a month ago. The Department of Education. Is the Department of Education being negatively impacted by Trump policies? Yeah. Yeah. So is this judge's personal family, his wife, his household income, and his adult daughter and her income? Are they being personally affected, negatively affected by Trump policies? SNAP specific Trump policies in some cases? Yeah. Judge McConnell's first order issued Saturday morning. Both his orders were issued Saturday, by the way. It's very funny because after the first one, Trump made a post on Truth Social that kind of tweaked the judge. He didn't like it. So he immediately issued another order. The first page is this kind of nonsense. Let's see what Judge McConnell has to say. King McConnell. So all this is starting October 30th, right? Which was Thursday. So it's so funny to me to see the federal courts move at this kind of pace because this is not normal. Like civil court cases normally take months or years to work their way through the federal courts. But so a complaint is filed on Monday, cost them $405. That's how much it costs to frustrate the Article 2 executive power of the United States, apparently. $405. All these plaintiffs saying, we want our SNAP money. We want our SNAP money. Same day, Thursday. Let's see. Motion for a TRO and a preliminary stay. They want their SNAP money. So stuff is happening on Thursday. Lots of motions for lawyers to appear from out of the jurisdiction. That's what this means. Every time you see this pro hac vici, that means they don't normally work in that district. These are all left-wing lawyers jumping into the arena. They have to ask permission to appear pro hac vici. Look at all of them. Look at all these left-wing lawyers. They're always available. So on Thursday, he issues a notice of a hearing. He's going to have a hearing on Thursday about this, on Friday about this temporary restraining order. Friday comes and they have the hearing. And let's see. Then all this stuff, because you see there's no documents linked here. All this stuff is like oral statements that are then just kind of documented here in the record. And so on Friday, he does an oral order granting the motion for the TRO for the reasons stated on the record during the oral hearing. Here's the thing about a TRO, folks. A TRO, or a preliminary injunction, is required to be in writing. It's required to be in writing. Why? Because when you write stuff down, it's very specific. And anyone who's being restrained by a TRO or enjoined by a preliminary injunction has a right to know, because they're at risk of being held in contempt if they violate the TRO preliminary injunction. So they're entitled to know with specificity what they're prohibited from doing and so what they're still allowed to do. You can't have an ambiguous TRO or preliminary injunction. It's simply unlawful. And when judges speak, when anyone speaks, we often speak and there's ambiguity, or how people heard it or how they interpret it can vary. So it's required that TROs or preliminary injunctions be put in writing so that everyone understands exactly what's allowed and what's not allowed. And the the judge didn't do that. He just said, "All right, my oral TRO, my oral TRO is this thing. I just want you to pay." And of course, the White House is like pay. What do you mean pay? We don't have the money. We don't have the legal authorization. Effective tomorrow, November 1st. This is Friday, October 31st. You're giving us this oral order. We don't have the money. How are we supposed to pay? And we don't really understand. You're not documenting in writing what it is we're supposed to do or not do. So Trump responds, Trump's lawyers respond reasonably enough with this. They say, Your Honor, a real federal judge would have put this in writing. So defendant, that's Trump, emergency motion under Rule 65 to reduce this. Rule 65 governs TROs and preliminary injunctions, to reduce the court's oral temporary restraining order to writing. Could you make it specific, please? That's what a real judge does, Your Honor. Maybe you don't know this, since apparently you paid $700,000 for your judgeship. And then Trump did his Truth Social thing. Our government lawyers do not think that we, the Article 2 executive branch, have the legal authority to pay SNAP with certain monies we have available. And now two courts, Indira Talwani and John McConnell, have issued conflicting opinions on what we can and cannot do. I do not want Americans to go hungry just because the radical Democrats, the Schumer shutdown, refuse to do the right thing and reopen the government. Therefore, I've instructed our lawyers to ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. We're happy to do it, Your Honors, but you got to explain to us how you think that can be done. It's already delayed enough due to Democrats keeping the government closed through the monthly payment date. And even if we get immediate guidance, it will unfortunately be delayed while states get the money out. If we are given the appropriate legal direction by the court, it will be my honor to provide the funding, just like I did with military and law enforcement pay. The Democrats should quit this charade where they hurt people for their own political reasons and immediately reopen the government. If you use SNAP benefits, call the Senate Democrats and tell them to reopen the government. Now, here is crying Chuck Schumer's office number. 202-224-6542. What a brilliant play by Trump, because it just puts the burden right back on the Democrats. The judge tried to put the burden on Trump. Just come up with the money. Just pay it, Trump. And Trump was like, you got to explain to me, Your Honor, how you think I could be legally entitled to pay these monies. I don't control the money. Congress controls the money. Congress has to agree that money can be spent, and they have not done that. So that resulted in the second judicial order. And so here we have to keep in mind, the judge here is responding both to the request for a written TRO instead of this nonsense oral TRO that he'd initially expected Trump to, violate the Constitution over. And also Trump's social media post, Truth Social post, where Trump is like, well, you tell me how to do it, Your Honor. So the defendants have stated that while they're expeditiously attempting to comply with the court's order, while considering whether any emergency relief is required, they would like clarity as to the court's ruling. And so they ask that it be in writing. Motion for a written order. Also, the judge notes, that's one thing the judge is responding to. Also, the second thing the judge is responding to, the President of the United States stated Friday evening, I do not want Americans to go hungry. I asked the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible, ... Look at all the ellipses, because the judge is taking out all the digs against the Democrats. As soon as possible, if we are given the appropriate legal direction by the court, it will be my honor to provide the funding. Look at the snark in this judge's order. So, Judge John McConnell writes, so here's the order, and here's the legal direction from the court. Having reviewed the complaint, the motion, the memorandum of law, declarations, evidence in support of the motion, I've done all the things a judge is supposed to do, as well as the papers filed to this motion. And after conducting a hearing under the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure 65, and for good cause shown, the court finds the plaintiffs, the people demanding the SNAP money continue somehow, satisfied the requirements for a TRO because they're likely to succeed on the merits, they'll be irreparably harmed, and the public interest, blah, 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 blah. All the 4 factors for a TRO. It's therefore ordered. In the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2024, Congress appropriated $122 billion for supplemental nutritional assistance SNAP, and they directed that $3 billion of that remain available through September 30th, 2026, and placed in reserve as may become necessary to carry out program operations in an emergency. Now, he's leaving out, of course, the emergency this is for is not a government shutdown. That's an emergency created by Congress and maintained by Congress. It's for things like environmental disasters, natural disasters, hurricanes. Congress maintained those funds, meaning that an additional $3 billion was put aside in a reserve available through September 30th, 2027. Because of the lack of appropriations for this fiscal year, the shutdown, use of those contingency funds has now become required in the judgment of this Judge McConnell, because available funding is necessary to carry out program operations. There's no question that the congressionally approved contingency funds must be used now because of the shutdown. Again, there is a question, and this is just the judge's opinion. The judge is deciding how federal money is supposed to be spent. First, he blocked Trump's attempts to not spend money, and now he's ordering Trump to spend this money as well. In fact, the president during his first term issued guidance indicating these contingency funds are available if SNAP funds lapse due to government shutdown. Because the contingency funds, even if Trump spends them, it's only a small fraction of the monthly SNAP expenditure, do not equal the total amount necessary to make November SNAP benefit payments. The government has posited that implementing a partial allotment for the entire country would be exceedingly difficult, highly disruptive, and delayed, requiring a reworking of every state system to recognize and set forward a reduced benefit. But this judge says you're not allowed to reduce the benefit. Congress created SNAP as an entitlement. Assistance under this program shall be furnished. Shall be. Therefore, to ensure the quick, orderly, and efficient implementation of the court's order to fulfill the statute designation of SNAP as an entitlement, and to alleviate the irreparable harm that the court found exists without timely payment of SNAP benefits, the government should, within its discretion, find the additional funds necessary to fully fund the November SNAP payments. The government, the federal government, the Trump administration should, within its discretion, just find the money. Just show me the money, Trump. Show me the money. And he says, well, funds available for this, there's money here. The Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1935, there's money there. Of course, all these monies in different places are there for different purposes. Different purposes. If the government chooses to make a full payment, it must do so by the end of the day on Monday. That's tomorrow. If the government does want to use its discretion to use funds available to make a full SNAP payment for SNAP benefits for November, it must expeditiously resolve the administrative and clerical burdens it described in its papers. So all these real world, the executive branch things that executive branches have to deal with, the judges, unelected, black-robed, tyrannical, inferior district trial court judges, they don't do any of this. This judge has zero competence or expertise in managing any administrative or clerical burdens. He just says you have to solve it. I'm ordering you to make this possible. Who's the king here exactly? Is it Trump? Is the king Trump, or is the king the judge who has the power, the self-declared power, to wave a judicial scepter and simply order Trump to do things? Isn't the king the one who issues the orders, the summary orders? The government will report to this court on or before noon on Monday what it will do to comply with our kingly royal order. In summary, the government must make full SNAP payments no later than Monday, tomorrow. If they choose to use their discretion and not use other funds in addition to the contingency funds, and they must make a partial payment of the total amount, they must do this no later than Wednesday. So one interesting thing about this is this order was issued after Trump's social media post. It went up last night, Saturday night. Yeah, last night. And oh yeah, that's what it was. Trump's social media post was on Friday. So this was actually written on Friday night, and then it was posted up on Saturday morning. This judge, if this order has a frantic tone from the judge, just figure it out, just make it happen, exercise my will. There you know. That's why the imperial judiciary, the tyrannical judiciary of the United States of America, it is just heinous.